We are back now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast here to go through our last recap of Week 10 here, just quickly because this was supposed to be a big matchup, going into this game, and it was originally going to be, a big game for the NFC East, the first matchup coming so late between the Eagles and the Cowboys, right? But, the expectations for the Cowboys obviously weren't met, and knowing what we know now about Dallas, it played out essentially how we would have thought, knowing, again, what we know now about the Cowboys and really the Eagles as well, because the Eagles end up defeating the Cowboys 34-6 without Dak Prescott. Today, actually, Jerry Jones officially, announced to everybody on the weekly radio show that he does each and every week that Dak was going to go through that season-ending surgery that will rule him out for about 3 to 4 months. I think it's supposed to happen tomorrow. So this one, definitely the first game without Dak Prescott, now knowing that he's going to be out the rest of the year. And it is now the Cowboys' fourth loss in a row, dropping them to 3-6. And Philadelphia, on the other hand, wins their fifth straight game to go to first place in the division at 7-2 after the Commanders lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now they are 7-3, while the Eagles are 7-2. So, on Dak Prescott not playing, right? Cooper Rush got his first start. Micah Parsons also on the more positive of note for the Cowboys. He made his return after spending about 4 to 6 weeks on the bench because of that high ankle sprain. He made his return, and right away, it looked, to his credit, like he really didn't miss any time. He did his part in the first half to keep this game close because he forced the fumble. He was everywhere involved with the tackles and whatnot. He, again, really, it looked like he was motivated to go out there, and I'm sure he was itching to come back to kind of, add to the motivation there. But in the first half, it was still relatively close because of the turnovers and things like that the Dallas defense was able to hold the Eagles as well. So that was as positive as it got for the Cowboys in this game, because overall, with this loss now, again, the Cowboys go to 0-4 at home. And out of everything that we've seen this year for the Cowboys, that one might be as surprising as a stat as there could ever be for this Cowboys team that still hasn't won a game at home. And with only 146 total yards on offense, it was their worst offensive output at home since 2009 for the Cowboys as well. They're on they're on a historical pace, but for not any sort of good reason. So that's where it stands right now. And actually, on my phone, getting a notification that the Niners and their defensive back Diamador Lenore have agreed to a 5-year, $92 million contract extension. So, that's great for Diamador Lenore to get that extension. I don't know how that fits him into the defensive back market. Sorry, here, just gotta do some quick math on my phone to kind of determine that. He gets $18.5 million per year, so good for Diamador Lenore. He's a good corner. An underrated one, definitely, for the 49ers. He just agreed to a contract extension, so great for him. But back to this game now, right? On the Philadelphia side of things, they accounted for 5 turnovers that they produced from Dallas in this game. Cooper Rush fumbled twice. One of them was very early in this game. Then Ezekiel Elliott fumbled on his way to the end zone. That was a killer. Jake Ferguson fumbled. Trey Lance came into the game and threw an interception. Just anytime they tried to get anything rolling on offense, it seemed like they just got in their own way. The turnovers were definitely a big thing to contribute in this game overall. But on the stats side of things here for this game and how it kind of played out, for such a lopsided game, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts had 202 yards, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 5 times, but it's definitely not reflective in the score. He threw an interception as well and had 56 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Saquon, only 66 rushing touchdowns on the day. And A.J. Brown was the only wide receiver to have more than 2 receptions in this game. He had 5 receptions for 109 yards, but no touchdowns. And on the Cowboys side of things, we're not going to read too much into it. I don't think there's really any point. Nobody really played good. Cooper Rush threw for 45 yards, and Trey Lance threw for 21 passing, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, it's what you'd expect out of this team now that really seem to be relying on Dak Prescott, obviously, as one of their last sources of good offense. And now that he's done for the rest of the year, I don't think these numbers are too surprising. And really, the only surprising thing about this, other than Micah playing very good just on his return, it was only 14-6 at halftime because Dallas, like I said, forced an interception and a fumble as well in that first half. But that was as close as it got the entirety of the game, because into the second half, the Eagles scored 20 points to Dallas's 0. And, at that point, we had a lot of the backups coming in towards the end of the game. Trey Lance came in, Kenny Pickett came in, and I'm sure a bunch of other players came in. They outscored the Cowboys 20-0 in the second half. And Philadelphia had 10 more minutes of possession just to add on to the dominance that they showed in this game. But in reality, when you look at some of these other points of the game, they weren't really good on third down. Philly went only 4 of 11, and Dallas went 3 of 14. So it's just kind of more of the same with the Eagles, right? Because they'll have their bad moments, but they're so talented. They're so much more talented than a lot of the teams that they're going to face. So yeah, they might go through rough stretches in the game. Jalen might throw a bad interception, or they might not run the ball very good with Saquon, but still at one point or another, they're going to get on the same page eventually, and Jalen is going to complete a bunch of his passes. Saquon is going to have his moments, and just like before you know it, they're going to be up a touchdown. And then from that point on, once it gets rolling, the defense starts to get more involved, playing with a lead, obviously. They're able to get after the pass rusher. We've seen more of Jalen Carter, more of Jordan Davis. They're getting more turnovers as well. Zach Bond is playing crazy right now as well. Nakobe Dean is playing better too. Their defense is starting to catch up a little bit more to their offense. So this Eagles team is starting to really find their groove. But even through some of the bad moments, really, what I just keep noticing about the Eagles is that their talent really comes into play when they do have those bad moments, but you can't completely rule them out unless they're losing by like 20 points or something. If it's a 1-score, 2-score game, it's not enough because of how talented they are. And I think that showed up again here, because they're years and just waves ahead of the Cowboys in terms of talent. So, speaking about the Cowboys, they're 3-6, but it's funny looking at them at 3-6 and looking at the Dolphins at 3-6. Completely different vibes you get from both of those teams, right? The Dolphins, you're thinking, what could have been? Maybe they still have a chance if they keep playing well. Whereas with Dallas, of course their quarterback is now done for the year, but really for them to be sitting at 3-6, I think even going back to the last couple weeks, everybody was saying that their season was done. And on this game, the takeaways that I just keep hearing, it's not anything to do on the field, because on the field, I think we've said it already enough, right? Everybody just keeps repeating it, that they can't run the ball, they can't stop the run. Now, definitely without Dak, CD is pretty much negated as well. But it's really now, it's gone to a point where it's not about the game anymore, for, of course, how badly they're playing, but every single week, even on their bye week, we hear something coming from the Cowboys on Jerry Jones, whatever he had to say, Micah Parsons talking on his podcast, or recently, just after this game, mentioning Mike McCarthy in some of his comments, and CeeDee Lamb talking about the sun and how it got in his eyes, and then they're asking Jerry Jones about it, and it's all like a mess. And that's all you hear after the Cowboys games. You're not hearing about what they did on this play, or could they have done something different over here? What does the offense need to do? It's just a bunch of other topics that people are talking about the Cowboys, because there's not anything to talk about on the field. And usually, that kind of gets toned out a little bit when they're doing good, but this year really the wheels have completely fallen off, and I don't know if it'll get better or if these criticisms will go down anymore just based on what we've seen so far, and especially when Micah Parsons makes those comments after the game. And that's really where I wanted to go now with the last segment, and just talk about those comments that Micah Parsons made about Mike McCarthy after the Eagles game, where it definitely sounds a lot worse than I thought it really was. So, everyone was talking about it, and I thought I'd give my thoughts on it, and really just a bigger issue that, of course, the Cowboys face now for the remainder of this year. So, we'll be right back after a short break to talk about what Micah Parsons had to say about his head coach.